Welcome to the Calsoft Podcast series. This is your host Mark Rodrigues. With me, I have today Nitin Singhvi, who's going to be talking about Docker-based framework for scalability testing. Hi, Nitin.
Hey, hi Mark. Thanks for having me here.
It's great to have you on here. Nitin is an associate director here with us at Calsoft, and he is a technology guru and has over 12 plus years experience working in the networking and the data center technologies. He is now currently looking after advanced technologies like SDN, OpenStack, container, the container ecosystem, etc. So Nitin has a lot of experience in the Docker space, and that's why we have him with us here today. I'm going to jump right into the topic, Nitin. So what do you see are the challenges you see for products as deployments move to the cloud?
Hey, that's a good question, Mark. And I'm sure a lot of guys are having this question and they're pondering about finding the answer to it. There's no one good answer that fits it. But see, everyone is moving to cloud. Cloud makes a lot of difference in terms of how the users are using it. From the user's perspective, there are a lot of simple steps to follow nowadays. They don't have to worry about the physical infrastructure, wiring up your network, orchestrating your storage. There's absolutely nothing of that sort.
Okay.
They don't have to raise a ticket to do anything. It's everything is at a click of a button for them. But on the other hand, there's a lot of changes happening for the cloud vendors or the products which are being deployed in the cloud.
Okay.
To name a few, automated orchestration. So if you don't have the manual intervention, how do you orchestrate the entire network or the infrastructure? So you need to have the capability to do automated orchestration. With such a large network or the deployment, how do you monitor it? So your monitoring needs to be able to keep up with the ever growing cloud. Networking at scale with overlays. Nowadays a cloud might host like thousands of tenants. So what you're talking about is a huge network deployment, and there's a security aspect to it, because one tenant shouldn't be able to talk to or see the traffic of the other tenant. Right? There are new protocols for pretty much everything. There are a lot of integrations which are required. There's as I said, there's isolation which is required. On top of all of these, the CSPs have to provide the performance and the SLAs, the guaranteed SLAs. Otherwise, the tenants are going to run away.
Yeah. Okay, so Nitin, so what's that one big thing that cloud providers and their vendors are worried about?
Well, even I was thinking about that question for like last 6 months or so. But as part of my job, I talk to a lot of existing as well as new customers on a weekly basis. Which includes new product companies which are having new products for new age clouds. From what I hear from most of them, the scalability aspect is the biggest challenge for them. As I had mentioned earlier, thousands of tenants in one cloud. How do you manage it? Right. So it needs for good part of it, it needs a lot of hardware and software architecture differentiation or re-architecture. For example, storage arrays previously were being used by, let's say, employees of an organization. But now the storage array is being deployed at cloud with thousands of tenants, and every tenant is having, let's say, tens of users. So what you're talking about is millions of connections to the storage arrays. Or for example, if you have a networking gear, same networking gear is now carrying the traffic of so many different networks. Right. So I think scalability is one of the biggest challenge as I see for most of the cloud product vendors right now.
Okay. And what are the numbers that these products need to scale to? Any idea on that?
Well, I'll say it depends on the environment and the product class. For example, if VLAN was being used, VLAN would have 4094 networks at the max in a cloud, because assuming that 0 and 4095 are not being used. But if we are moving to the overlays, we are talking about 24-bit network ID. So that means 2 raised to 24 networks is what you can actually host in the cloud. So that's a big number, right? So you cannot, when you have to test these kind of scalability, basically, you cannot have one number which fits all. So it really depends on the product roadmap, your hardware and software limitations, what market you want to target, whether it's a public cloud or whether it's a private cloud or private managed cloud and so on. So there's no one size which fits all, really speaking.
Okay, so put your finger on what are the biggest challenges for vendors then?
So apart from, as I said, the hardware and the software architecture, I believe verification at such a large scale is one big challenge. With advanced unit testing, you can probably reach to some extent. You can probably fill in thousands of MAC entries in the network switch. But what if you want to really have thousands of clients or nodes actually doing traffic and behaving like different tenants? That you cannot do, just by having a huge setup. You cannot have like hundreds of hypervisors running thousands of VMs, because you are talking about testing such things during multiple times during the product implementation. So maybe every 2 weeks or even every week you have to do this kind of testing. So that's pretty tricky in my opinion.
Nitin, you've been doing this for a long time now, or at least I gather you have. How do you suggest we handle this?
Well, that's the beauty of technology. We being the engineers, we find, we keep finding good questions and we keep finding better solutions to them. So I think, to this question, containerization is the answer to go for. With the combination of Docker, network namespaces, I think you can, have a solution to handle this, do the scalability. In fact, we are also expecting Windows-based Docker support in 2016. So once you have that, probably the Windows applications, if you have to do Windows-specific scalability testing, that also would be possible.
You mentioned Docker a couple of times, and you mentioned container. You throw some light on both of these?
Oh, sure. So Docker is, I'll say, next avatar of virtualization. It takes virtualization to the next limit. It's a fantastic innovation which is already changing the way apps are being built or infrastructure is being deployed. It provides the containerized environment for networking, processes, mount points, users and so on. So you can put together all these multiple Docker instances on one operating system using the shared kernel. So what you're talking about is on one server where you were running probably 32 virtual machines. With Docker you can actually run thousands of Docker instances and they are behaving as good as virtual machines. So that's pretty much the brief definition of Docker. It's a mini VM basically.
And containers?
Containers are the basis of the Dockers. Docker is actually built on top of Linux containers, so it's essentially using the same concepts and technology.
Okay, so fundamentally you're saying that Docker is like a mini VM. That's
Yes.
exciting stuff. Nitin, we were discussing the other day that Calsoft has built such a ready-made solution for product vendors to use. Can you throw some more light on it?
Oh yeah, we do. So we have a scalability test framework which provides most of the infrastructure which is required for such a large scalability test. This framework, I would say, it's extremely pluggable. It provides the infrastructure and then lets you do what you really want to do in terms of the testing of your product. So it provides a lot of other features in the framework which you can readily use.
Okay, and what are the services that this framework provides?
So it's a simple configuration, file-based framework. You define a configuration, the framework will create your infrastructure using Docker, network namespaces, Linux containers. It will do that on the cluster of machines. On top of it, it gives back the control to the user. The user can load his own simple Python-based test module. The framework also exposes a lot of REST APIs. For example, if you want to boot a Docker, multiple Docker machines, or you want to group multiple Docker instances and do a common operation on them, your Python code or the user's Python code can actually use the APIs provided by the framework. So you don't have to innovate the wheel again. The framework is pretty powerful. What customers have to write is a simple Python code, and that's pretty much about it. The framework also provides you logging and reporting. So it's It's pretty much end-to-end support with the pluggable architecture.
Okay. And any specific kind of products that can utilize this framework?
Well, as I said, it's a generic framework. It can be used by any product which needs the scalability testing, of course. It could be a networking gear, or it could be a storage array which needs thousands of nodes accessing it, or thousands of nodes just generating the traffic. Pretty much everything. The flexibility basically comes from the fact that the framework itself is generic. That's how we have designed it, because we are in SNVC place. So we have to support virtualization, networking, storage and cloud all. So we have designed this framework keeping all these functional areas in mind. So that's why it's really generic, but with the generosity that it has, there are no limitations as such. I would say it's a pretty powerful tool that anybody can use off the shelf.
Brilliant. I think Nitin, that throws a lot of light on these burning issues in the technology industry right now. I appreciate you coming here and giving us time to understand a little more about scalability testing using Docker.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Pleasure is all mine. Thanks for inviting me again.
Yeah, and before you go, Nitin, we are running into the DockerCon right now, the biggest Docker summit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Expectations on this conference, or anything you want to mention?
I think there are a lot of innovative things happening in the Docker world. I would say now it's time to do the integration and do the real deployments of Docker-based applications. One hot area is how do you migrate the applications to Dockerized, mini services-based architecture. How do you do that? Or if you have the existing applications, how do you migrate them? Or how do you do Docker deployment monitoring? How do you scale your products to have thousands of Docker instances instead of just few hundred VMs? So there are a lot of good challenges. I'm sure there will be a lot of innovative ideas which will be shared and discussed in the summit. Looking forward to it, in fact. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Nitin. Well, thanks so much for that. It was great having you on the show once again.
Thanks. Same here.
And we wish you all the very best. Well, that ends our podcast for today. If you have any feedback for us, you can write to us at marketing@calsoftinc.com. If you'd like to hear about any new podcasts from our technology specialists, please do write to us. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.